Hello, welcome to Eye on Africa. I'm Jean-Emile Jamini with your go-to show for the latest updates from across the continent. Let's take a look at your latest headlines. Nigerians across the religious spectrum hit back at Donald Trump's threats of US strikes in the country over the killing of Christians. Experts claim the ongoing violence is based on poor management and policing, with all groups affected. We'll get more reaction coming up. Then the International Criminal Court warns that atrocities committed in Sudan's El-Fasher could constitute war crimes and crimes against humanity. As the rapid support forces intensify their control, the United Nations reports over 36,000 civilians have fled Kordofan, while famine spreads across the region as well as Darfur. And we head to Senegal, where wrestling isn't just a sport but a national treasure. Now beach wrestling makes its Olympic debut at the 2026 Youth Games in Dakar, fueling excitement and ambition among young Senegalese as they chase Olympic glory. You're watching France 24's Eye on Africa. Nigerians are firing back after US President Donald Trump's threats of military intervention over the killing of Christians in the country. His comments have sparked a backlash, with Nigerians across faith lines, Christian and Muslim, rejecting foreign military action. While claims of Christian persecution have gained international attention, experts stress that the violence is driven by ethnic tensions and resource disputes, not just religious divides. And as the conflict intensifies, many argue that diplomacy, not military force, is key to finding a lasting solution. Sam Olokuya took a look for us at the reaction from Lagos.
The threat by US President Donald Trump to carry out military action in Nigeria has got virtually everyone talking. A retired Army General, Sani Usman, says US military action in Nigeria could cause collateral damage. He warned that war damage could worsen the relationship between Nigerian Christians and the country's Muslims. But human rights activist Emmanuel Ombiko, who says there is genocide against Christians, said he welcomed US airstrikes against the terrorists responsible for the genocide. The Nigerian government, in the meantime, says the United States must respect its sovereignty. The issue of genocide against Christians in Nigeria is a matter of debate. It is an issue that divides Nigerians almost along religious lines. But everyone seems to agree that there are lots of Muslim armed groups operating in the country. These groups have killed thousands of people across religious lines. 15 years ago, Boko Haram emerged in northeast Nigeria as the first jihadist group in the country. Today, numerous jihadist groups have been formed across northern Nigeria. All of them have the same goal of waging a violent campaign to turn Nigeria into an Islamic state. The inability of the Nigerian government to contain the jihadist groups has left many vulnerable people, including Christians, feeling helpless.
Well, for a clearer understanding, let's turn to Ebenezer Obadare, the Douglas Dillon Senior Fellow for Africa Studies at the Council on Foreign Relations in Washington, D.C. Thanks so much for joining us, Ebenezer. You're very well positioned as a Nigerian academic living in the United States. And I'm just curious about your immediate first reaction when you came across those Donald Trump Truth Social posts saying that he might target Nigeria. What did you think to yourself?
So there were two posts. The first one, the one on Saturday, was about designating Nigeria as a country of particular concern. If you've been paying attention to the kind of mobilization that has been going on over the past few weeks, you will not be surprised by that. I expected it, I saw it coming, so I wasn't surprised when the president made the pronouncement. But the one that really caught me napping was the announcement by President Trump that is considering taking unilateral action, military action against Nigeria. I find that surprising, because I thought that insofar as the president has been correct in his diagnosis of the problem of jihadist terror in Nigeria, the solution that he appears to be leaning towards, which is going into Nigeria unilaterally without the imprimatur of the Nigerian authorities, is the wrong move and is bound to be counterproductive.
But he's saying that it's predominantly a targeting of Christians. Do you think that he knows that this is not actually the case? Because all experts that we've heard from in Nigeria say across the board, religious groups are being targeted. And if he does know that what he's saying isn't true, what are his reasons for raising this rhetoric?
Thank you. So there are two dimensions to that. So let's take the first dimension. The president is not wrong to say that Christians are being targeted. There's plenty of evidence to support that. What is also true, the important word there being also, is that Muslims are also being targeted, non-believers are also being targeted, which leads us to the question, who is doing the targeting and why? The group that is doing the targeting is Boko Haram, whose name is Western Education is Forbidden, and is targeting both Christians and Muslims because it sees them as infidels. This is the point that I think many people tend to miss when they say Christians and Muslims are being targeted, hence the conflict is not religious. It is precisely because Christians and Muslims are being targeted that the crisis is religious. It's important to get that quality, that definition of the crisis right, in order to be able to have the correct policy approach to it. President Trump is half right about the emphasis on Christians being killed. The part that is not helpful is to say only Christians are being killed. Every day Nigerians are being killed by Boko Haram, the jihadist group, for a religious purpose.
And it's not only the Boko Haram insurgencies taking place throughout the country, but also even some farming groups with herders. And we see farmers versus herders across ethnic lines. And maybe that's something that the president is drawing from as well. But I don't suppose you can shed more light on that. But let me just ask you a second question here, because the Nigerian states themselves say that this might be a good way to bring the United States on board and help them with these insurgencies. Is that the correct strategy? Do you think that diplomacy can prevail here from Tinubu's government?
I think it's the correct strategy. So if you see the response of the Nigerian authorities, first the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to the tweet, to the post on Saturday, and then President Tinubu himself, after President Trump threatened to go in on Sunday unilaterally. I think one thing that you notice about both responses is that it's been very restrained and it's been very conciliatory. And I like that about both responses. It suggests to me that all is not lost and that there's plenty of ground for diplomacy and that there is enough room here for accommodation. There is an agreement among senior government officials I've spoken to over the last few days that the Boko Haram insurgency has gotten out of hand, that it needs to be tackled. This is precisely the opportunity for the authorities in Washington and the authorities in Abuja to come together and do that. The United States going in unilaterally is the very opposite of getting that done.
So just a very quick answer to this. Do you expect US bombs to drop in Nigeria in the coming weeks?
So this is the way I think about it. President Trump has shown interest in the welfare of Nigerian Christians since his first term as president. He gave $500 million worth of military hardware to the Nigerian military to fight Boko Haram. He once confronted former President Buhari of Nigeria and asked him pointedly, why are you killing Nigerian Christians? So he has shown consistency in this matter. I will not be surprised. Let me put it this way. The probability of him doing exactly what you said is on the high side.
On the high side. Ebenezer Obadare, thank you so much for that outlook, saying that US bombs could actually, in fact, be on their way to Nigeria to help with the insurgency. Let's turn to the latest from Sudan, where the International Criminal Court has warned that atrocities in El-Fasher could constitute war crimes and crimes against humanity. The ICC is taking steps to preserve evidence for future prosecutions. Last week, the Rapid Support Force paramilitary seized El-Fasher after an 18-month siege, with witnesses reporting house-to-house killings and sexual assaults by fighters. Over 36,000 civilians have also fled Kordofan as the RSF strengthens its grip, while clashes continue with the army for control of key regions like El Obeid. Coming Knight with the story.
Just over a week after El-Fasher was captured by paramilitary rapid support forces, thousands of refugees who managed to flee the besieged city have set up camp about 80 kilometers to the west.
I've never heard gunfire as heavy as that before. Everyone fled the city, soldiers and civilians. Everyone rushed to escape amidst all the gunfire around us.
Survivors have told horrifying stories of what happened when the Rapid Support Forces seized control of El-Fasher on the 26th of October, which include accounts of mass executions and rape. The prosecutor's office at the International Criminal Court now warns those atrocities could constitute war crimes and crimes against humanity. Before the war, 1.5 million people lived in El-Fasher. And while the UN estimates more than 65,000 have fled the city, it fears tens of thousands remain trapped, with humanitarian groups like the Red Cross unable to reach them.
It's history repeating, and it becomes worse every time a place is taken over by the other party. And there's just no restraint in what these weapon bearers do. And this is what I find most concerning.
The violence is reminiscent of 2 decades ago when the Arab origin militia that gave rise to the RSF was accused of committing a genocide against the people of Darfur, many warning another genocide is now unfolding. At the UN, Sudan's ambassador has pointed the finger at the United Arab Emirates, accusing it of financing the Rapid Support Forces. And while it continues to deny its implication, reports show it has provided crucial logistical support to the paramilitary fighters who conducted the assault on El-Fasher.
Now, on that note, a global hunger monitoring group says famine is ravaging Sudan's El-Fasher and Kadugli, with 375,000 people already facing starvation. The RSF's prolonged siege has cut off vital supplies, worsening malnutrition and sparking mass displacement. As fighting intensifies, the IPC warns 20 other areas are at risk of famine. Aid groups calling now for a ceasefire to prevent further deaths and tackle the country's escalating humanitarian crisis across Kordofan and Darfur. Now to the Democratic Republic of the Congo. The government has suspended 12 opposition parties, accusing them of threatening national unity. The move, linked to former President Joseph Kabila's controversial Nairobi summit, has sparked outrage and cries of unconstitutional action. Emmett Livingston in Kinshasa has more.
The Congolese government has suspended a total of 12 political parties. They include the party headed by former Prime Minister Matata Ponyo, for example, as well as the party of one of the country's main opposition politicians, Seth Kekuni. The reason for the suspension, according to the government, is that these political parties violated principles of national unity as well as state sovereignty. In practice, all the parties are linked to figures who attended an opposition conclave held in Nairobi last month, which was convened by Congo's former president, Joseph Kabila. Now, Kabila is regarded as a dangerous traitor in Congolese ruling circles. He was sentenced to death in October after a trial held in absentia over his alleged links to M23 rebels in eastern Congo. Kabila's party, the PPRD, had also been suspended earlier this year. The Congolese government's decision to suspend another round of parties has provoked criticism. In a joint statement, the affected political parties accused the government of, and I quote, an act of war against political pluralism. Large opposition parties that weren't suspended have also criticised the move as unconstitutional.
To lighter news. Wrestling isn't just a sport in Senegal. It's a national treasure, a symbol of pride and passion. Now the beach version of this beloved tradition is making its Olympic debut at the 2026 Youth Games in Dakar, sparking a wave of excitement and ambition among the nation's young people. Our correspondents in Dakar dive deep into the heart of this thrilling sport, exploring why it means so much to the Senegalese and what's at stake as they set their sights on Olympic glory.
Along Senegal's shores, an ancient art is practiced over and over. Wrestling, a sport of immense skill and a local symbol of power. Three minutes per match and 3 points to win. In this game of beach wrestling, every move counts. That's according to coach Safiatou, who trains these young wrestlers several times a week.
We prepare the youth for endurance and improve their technique. There are so many of them. We also focus on the rules so they learn them properly. We work on every move: spinning, arm throws, burying, leg sweeps, takedowns. All these techniques are practiced.
I used to wrestle with my friends in front of my house. The coach noticed me and invited me to training. I immediately liked it. By working hard, I know I can progress and make it in this sport. That's why I love it.
In Senegal, wrestling is more than just a sport, it's a way of life. In addition to beach wrestling, it's also practiced in its traditional form, a folk wrestling that allows competitors to strike with their hands. With more than 4,000 licensed wrestlers, it's the country's #1 sport, and its champions are national idols. Like Modulo, the undisputed king of the arenas, who welcomes the inclusion of beach wrestling in next year's Youth Olympic Games.
Here in Senegal, we really believe in ourselves, especially when it comes to wrestling, especially beach wrestling. No one can beat us. If the youth work hard, they can perform really well in the competition.
Although it's only beach wrestling that currently has an international rulebook, there are hopes that the traditional wrestling will also join the Olympic disciplines one day.
The #1 goal for future generations is to ensure that this form of wrestling with strikes can one day be practiced at the Olympic Games. Why not? It's a dream. By taking the positive aspects of Olympic wrestling on mats and adapting them, we can incorporate our heritage.
An exciting lineup of 35 sports are on the programme for Dakar 2026.
Brilliant story there from Senegal. That's where we end the news. There's more coming up on France 24.